It isn't every day that I have a beat reporter joining me on Locked On Warriors. It's a pleasure to have CJ Holmes, the Golden State Warriors beat reporter covering the Golden State Warriors, on today's show. He's going to give us his feedback, his perspective on the roster. It's pretty much set. There's still a few minor question marks remaining, but the NBA landscape in general, there's a lot going on. A team I once, many years ago, thought was a rival to the Warriors is now a straight-up laughingstock. We'll discuss that and so much more. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow San Francisco Chronicle Golden State Warriors beat reporter CJ Holmes on Twitter at CJHolmes22. He respects and appreciates retweets, folks. So if you see his content, hit that retweet button. Likes are worthless. Hit the retweet, man. CJ, it's been a while, been a few months you've been on the program. How the hell are you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Had a pretty good summer, busy summer. A couple rounds in Vegas, Miami for a couple of days, see some friends and family. Got home for 3 weeks. Got home for 3 weeks. Went to DC and been back in the Bay since August 6th, I want to say, and kind of just been like slowly ramping back up work wise. To training camp right around the corner, September 24th, and hopefully if I get all my passport stuff figured out, I'll join the team on their trip to Japan. So I'm looking forward to that. And before you know it, it's going to be time to do the full 82.
That's one of the huge perks of the job. I didn't even think about that. The Warriors are playing in Japan, 2 preseason games against the Wizards, playing in a city you just visited. Are you excited about that? Have you heard any news? Like, what's the anticipation from your end?
On my end, like I said, first and foremost, I got to get my passport situation figured out. It was kind of a last minute decision to send me, and I got to get some things figured out on my end because I haven't traveled out of the country in over 6 years, so my passport has been expired, sitting inside of a lockbox in my apartment for years. So just trying to get that stuff figured out. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Japan, Tokyo, it's always somewhere I've wanted to visit. It's definitely been on my bucket list. I'm looking forward to finally getting some authentic ramen. That should be cool. Just seeing the city. I know this is probably like a horrible, parallel, but I just saw Bullet Train the other day and just kind of seeing like the architecture of like Japan and, the technology, things like that is something I'm very excited to see. And of course, with Rakuten being the sponsor, the official sponsor of the Golden State Warriors, I'm sure those fans over in Japan are really excited to see some Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson and company.
Real quick, man, I know you're a huge fan of popular culture. I know you love the Marvel movies. I've seen you on Twitter expressing your fandom. I love it too. Bullet Train, dude. I know that's not in Marvel, but it's still a movie. Like, what's your review real quick? I haven't seen that movie yet. Is it good?
It's a little, it's one of those movies where, without spoilers, where they introduce a lot of characters and each character has their own like specific storyline, and the storylines all like come together at the end in a really creative way. It was a little bit slow getting going. I think for the first hour of the movie, they're just like introducing people, but the way it all ties up at the end is pretty cool. There's some good action, some good humor. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I went to like a late night show at like 9:45 last week. I've been meaning to see it for a while, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
Nice, man. And Brett,
it's not like a world breaking marvel of, movies or anything like that. But, it's good for what it is. If you go in expecting, one of those beat 'em up, kind of comedy, fight your way through a train kind of movie. If you go in and just like, keep it is what it is, it's pretty good. So I
love it, man. I'm going to check that out soon. I still haven't seen Top Gun Maverick yet, which I've heard is like amazing. Yeah, I know. I am. I'm going to do that really soon and have fun in Japan. I'm going to name drop one of my old best friends, Avi Eshed, who's a pretty big time producer in Hollywood now, but he goes to Japan all the time. He loves it. raves about the food and so forth. So, and the passport's funny, dude. I'm about to get my third. My first one, I just had stamps. Every page was stamped, man. I was traveling the world, and they want you to give it back when you trade it in. And I'm like, hell no. So that's like a souvenir for life for me. So I told them I lost it. This was like many years ago. And then so I had to go in there and get a new photo and go through the whole process. This time I think I'm just going to mail it in. Is that what you have to do as well? I started to bore the audience with passport talk, but is that all you have to do? You just have to mail it in, right? And get a new one?
Hey, man, someone just like threw a smoke grenade like through that back door, man. Like SWAT teams coming through.
Probably my mom. It's probably
hand
my mom.
over the passport. Hand over the passport. You know you have it, man.
I did not see that at all. But yeah, anyway, so I hope you have a fun trip. What are your, dude, you went to Summer League, you mentioned Vegas. So you got an up close and personal look at a player who's been getting some negative attention lately because of Stephen A. Smith's comments on First Take a couple days ago, and that's Jonathan Kaminga. I'm going to ask you about the roster in general. It's pretty set right now, except for that 14th spot. But you saw Kaminga up close and personal. His first game was rough, but then he came back and really played well. They had him playing the point when he was on the court. Moody, I thought, was just outstanding. Your thoughts on the Summer League and these youngsters, especially Kaminga and Moody?
To the point of, Kaminga and, some of the, negative pub, that press that's been, going around about him. I'll say this. Despite all that, the kid can walk into a gym, like literally jump out of bed, throw on some shoes, and like walk into a gym and drop 24 points. I think that speaks to his, very unique talent that he is. I've heard some rumblings about, Kaminga's off the court, but at the end of the day, there's been plenty of stars in this league, who have kind of entered the league kind of with a reputation like that, but have found a way to right the ship and still become pretty productive, outstanding players, in the league. So, hopefully a lot of things going on with Kaminga are just rumors. And if they're not, then that's certainly something he's going to have to clean up, especially considering the culture of the Warriors organization. And, the fact that, when it comes to guys like Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, all you hear is they work. At some point, Kaminga's going to have to develop a reputation, such as that. And, if he wants to, realize his full potential and truly, flourish in this league. We didn't see much Moody in Vegas, but in the limited time he was out there, he was fantastic. Knocking down long-range shots, getting to his spots with relative ease, things that you want to see from a guy who did play some, pretty good minutes here and there throughout the regular season. I always think back to his game in Denver when the vets were sitting out and he went out there and dropped 30, and, the backup Dubs almost went in there and, pulled off the win against Denver starters. So I think overall,
good call in that game. Good call in that game, by the way. Yeah.
Then, of course, James Wiseman, right? The guy everyone's been wanting to see this summer. I think he certainly had moments. He had some breathtaking blocks. He stepped into long-range shots of confidence. You could see the touch around the basket. He finished with authority more times than not. I think it was just, when it comes to those three, I think there was a lot more positives than negatives, and that bodes well heading into this season because all three of those guys are going to be expected to step into larger roles, especially with the departures of a Gary Payton II and of Otto Porter Jr. There's, Nemanja Bjelica. There's a lot of minutes going around, and, I think the Warriors are kind of banking on those guys, stepping in the larger roles and stepping up.
Absolutely right, man. And in just a moment, I'm gonna pick your brain on just the rest of the roster in general. Jamichael Green's a player I would love to ask you about, and Dante DiVincenzo and Andre Iguodala. I mean, it's like, when are we going to find out what he's going to do and what's going to happen if he decides to retire? First, I got to read a PSA from the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency. Look, you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. It happens. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or play it safe. You
are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Or get pulled over. That's how I was supposed to end that line, but at my screen, I lost the tab right at the end there. Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news, rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. You can follow San Francisco Chronicle, Golden State Warriors beat reporter CJ Holmes on Twitter at CJHolmes22. Let's talk about some of these new free agents. Dante DiVincenzo, Jamichael Green. Your thoughts on these two additions, which were huge this offseason?
I think, the Warriors signing of Dante DiVincenzo is one of the more underrated moves, this summer. You lose a guy like Gary Payton in your backcourt, and to bring in a guy like Dante DiVincenzo, a dude who at one point was a high-level starter on a championship team before injury. I think it's a steal, man. It's a steal. While he isn't the defender that Gary is,
who is,
Dante,
right?
Dante, who is, right? I think
Yeah. Dante's
a pretty solid defender in his own right, and what he doesn't have defensively, he more than makes up for as an offensive threat. He's a very good slasher, can play in transition. It's easy to see him playing alongside Steph and Clay in that kind of high-level, up-tempo kind of offense that the Warriors like to run. He can step into three-point shots, shoots a solid percentage from behind the line. He can facilitate a little bit. He can do a little bit of everything. So while he isn't the defender that Gary Payton is, but I do think that he's a much better all-around offensive player. And I think he'll fit in well in this system. Then you got Then you got Jamichael Green.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing because when the Warriors first announced the signing, my thought is, can Jamichael Green play with Steph Curry? Because, I think that's the ultimate determining factor when these guys are brought in. Can they play within our system? Do they complement Steph Curry, right? And I think he does. I think he does. I think he's going to bring a lot of the same attributes to the table as a Draymond Green in a way. He's physical. He's a little bit of a bully on the glass to, kind of make up for some of that rebounding that's going to be lost with Otto Porter Jr.'s departure. While he isn't necessarily the stretch forward that Otto is, in my mind, you got to respect his three-point shot. He can knock it down, right? Who's more dangerous, Otto or Jamichael? I would definitely say Otto. But you got to respect Jamichael's outside shot. And this is a guy who's a veteran, who's kind of been around the league. He's been in a lot of systems, played with a lot of star players. So when you ask, can he play with Steph? I think so, because, that veteran IQ that he has is going to allow him to adjust quickly. So, when I look at these free agent signings and like the current makeup of the Warriors roster, I do think that, they might have gotten better on the backboards with the addition of a Jamichael Green. I think they got better offensively, with the addition of a Dante DiVincenzo. And when Nemanja Bjelica's gone, Damian Lee's gone, and then you bring in more young talents, and a Pat Baldwin Jr. and Ryan Rollins. So you got younger and more talented, more potential. So overall, the Warriors is, I believe like their biggest objectives this offseason was to A, manage the luxury tax, and B, maintain a championship caliber roster. And, while it's going to obviously take a month or two maybe to see how for these pieces to truly gel, I think they came out of this thing in pretty good shape. And I think they're going to be able to, remain a contending team.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Before the Jamichael
Mhm.
Green edition, I was worried.
Mhm.
When they added him, I felt comfortable immediately. Just because there's a lot of addition by subtraction with this roster. I mean, look, you lost defense, clearly losing Gary Payne the second, but then you gained some offense with Dante DiVincenzo. You lost some of the defense. Or, I'm sorry, you lost some of the 3-point shooting that with Otto Porter Jr. leaving. And while Jamichael Green, I agree with you, he's not quite at the same level, but he makes up for it with the inside tenacity.
Mhm.
He's a ferocious rebounder and defender. Like, he's really aggressive and strong inside. And then with Bielitsa, you're replacing him with James Wiseman. That's really what the swap is. So if these young players pan out, they could be better than they were a year ago, and that's frightening for the rest of the NBA. We're going to talk about it in just a second, but there's still one question mark on this roster. And I know, look, typically the 14th spot on a roster is not something you worry about. It's not something that's typically a big deal. But with the Warriors, the strength in numbers adage rings true. I mean, they do reach deep into that bench. Excuse me. And Andre Iguodala still hasn't decided if he wants to play or not. The team reportedly is just letting him take his time and letting him make the call. He's certainly adapted that Udonis Haslem role with the Golden State Warriors at this point in his career. Have you heard anything? And I guess in your opinion, if let's say Iguodala retires, what do you think they're going to do with that 14th roster spot? Is it another G Leaguer? Will they actually sign another veteran? Your thoughts?
Well, you know how much of a value Iguodala is to the team in terms of being that extension of the coach on the bench. Kind of the voice of the coaches in the locker room in terms of the mentorship he brings. If I were him, why not running back, right? Why not running back? Not too much is going to be expected of you physically. Can mess around and get another ring, right? Why not?
Yeah.
Of course, it's a long year. And if he's tired, he's tired. But, if he has the energy to run it back, why not? The team could certainly use his leadership. These young guys, as we talked about, they're beginning to step into, larger roles. Andre can be that calming voice in their ears, helping them down the right path, right? And like I said, you can mess around and get another ring with a third of, without even putting up a third of the effort. So why not? In terms of, what's imminent, I'm in the dark with that. I haven't heard much. I wouldn't be surprised if Andre decides to announce it on his podcast, right? But, it's probably going to happen at the most inconvenient time for everyone. But,
great call, man. That's a great point forward. I think is the name of the podcast he does with Evan Turner. He just certainly drops some bombs on that podcast, right? I mean, he does say things that are kind of eye opening and becomes news in and of itself. So that's a great call. He probably will announce it on his podcast. Good job with that.
But if he doesn't, if he does indeed decide to hang it up, that could create an easier path to the 15-man roster for a Mac McClung, right? Or maybe you can go out and get you see what kind of two-way vets are left on the market and bring someone in for the minimum just to kind of, get a little bit more veteran talent at the end of the bench, right? There's different ways you can leave it open, right? You can leave it open and see what happens, a couple weeks into the season, right?
Yeah.
There are different ways that the Warriors could go, but in the event that Iggy doesn't come back, I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, they kind of take a look at, what kind of two-way vets are, left out there on the market and, bring them in. I'm not, no knock on some of the camp guys, but, I don't think any of those guys can really help the Warriors necessarily. I do think Mac McClung might be able to help the Warriors a little bit as that third point guard, right? Or maybe that's what you do. Maybe you go get a more experienced third point guard, without, take some of the pressure off of Ryan Rollins and, things of that nature, or a Mac McClung. So there's different directions that the Warriors can go in for sure in the event that Iggy decides to hang it up.
And Ryan Rollins, by the way, is hopefully going to be coming on this show soon. I'm working on that. I can't wait to get to know the kid. And in just a moment, we're going to break down the rest of the NBA landscape. There was a huge injury that was revealed yesterday. I think late yesterday is when the news broke out. And then there was also a huge trade involving a team that I once considered to be a rival of the Warriors, but it would be do an utter disjustice to the Warriors to say that because the other team is just that pathetic now. But first, I got to talk about a longtime sponsor of this program, BetOnline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. And I'm actually share these odds with you, CJ. And this is courtesy of BetOnline. And what you can bet on is who the favorites are to win the 2023 Western Conference title. The Warriors appropriately are the favorites. That's 7-2 odds or 3.5 to 1. And then the Clippers are second at 15-4 or 3.75 to 1. And then the Phoenix Suns at 5 to 1. And then again, this just every time I see this, all I can think of is how moronic human beings on this planet are, because this Los Angeles Lakers 7 to 1, that is not the bookies saying we think the Lakers are the 4th best team in the West. These are the bookies saying you morons out there are going to bet on the Lakers, so we got to set this line appropriately. Your thoughts? Are the Warriors, in your opinion, the favorites? And what would you do differently about this ranking, if any? I think the Memphis Grizzlies should be way higher, but your thoughts?
You see, I
am
a big John Wall guy, so I'm really happy to see that the Clippers are getting some love in terms of being, better, contenders this year, especially with the return of Kawhi Leonard. I think the Clippers are going to be scary. So you know what, having them with the second best odds is kind of appropriate.
Agreed.
I do agree that the Grizzlies need to be higher. Certainly, certainly above Denver, certainly above LA. It's crazy. It's like no matter how bad the Lakers are, they're always near the top of the pack. It's
with LeBron there. When in the 2014 to 2019 Lakers, people put them where they belonged, which was at the bottom. And then they just blew all those lottery picks time and time and again with horrible front office moves. I mean, at one point they had players like Julius Randle on their team, Brandon Ingram on their team, Alonzo Ball on their team. And that's what they did with their draft picks, when they were horrible all those years. I think you're right. It could be a Lakers effect in terms of making them the 4th, making them have the 4th highest odds to win the West. But I think it's also more of a LeBron James thing, man. Like wherever LeBron goes, people just worship this guy, man. They think he's a lot of people still think he's the greatest ever, which is one of the most asinine arguments I've ever heard. Maybe you disagree with me, and I'd love to have that debate with you on another show if that's true. But the Grizzlies, I think, are totally disrespected. Their odds are 11 to 1 to win the West. The Nuggets are a little disrespected. For them to be placed behind the Lakers at 10 to 1.
Why on earth is Portland so high? I mean they're not really high, but that's higher than I would have had them.
The odds are crazy. And again, these are based entirely on the public's perception of these teams. And you can bet on all of this by going to BetOnline. You can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball. The NFL is just around the corner. The NBA is a little over a month away from training camps. NHL is around the corner. Combat sports, esports, even golf. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. So is CJ Holmes on Twitter. Make sure you retweet him. Don't hit that worthless like button. You can follow CJ on Twitter at CJ Holmes 22, beat reporter covering the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. Let's go around the NBA to wrap up the show today. First things first, the Los Angeles. I can't believe this trade happened, man. The Los Angeles Lakers traded away Talen Horton-Tucker, a player they valued more than Alex Caruso. They traded him, who's only 21 years old, by the way, and Stanley Johnson, in my opinion, a valuable backup big. They trade those two to the Utah Jazz for Patrick Beverley, a player deep into his 30s who does not give you much on offense, stout defender. I mean, I would have loved if he ended up with the Warriors in some sort of buyout. But that, to me, that is an easy win for the Utah Jazz. That is just more evidence of Rob Pelinka being straight up out of his mind. Your thoughts on that trade, CJ? Because I think that is ludicrous and clearly one-sided in favor of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I just don't necessarily get it, right? On two fronts, right? I mean, this guy was untouchable like all summer, and like, you know, when I hear rumors of potential packages for like a Kyrie or a KD, like, nope, we're not trading Taylor Horton Tucker. And yeah, you trade him for Pat Beverly, and then on the other front, you're like, you know, like the long documented history of beef between like him and Russell Westbrook. So you're just like inviting that beef into your locker room on an already dysfunctional team, and it's just doesn't make much sense to me. It kind of makes me think that there's another move coming down the line here soon. You know, maybe they've, you know, finally found a trade partner to get, you know, Russ out of Los Angeles. Who knows? I'm team. It's not all Russ's fault. You know, I've been strong like all summer. I've been a team like there's no way this is all Russell, you know, Westbrook's fault. I mean, can you guys guard someone maybe? Like that might help a little bit, right? But yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me.
But I think you're right. You're right, CJ. I do think this is setting it up for a Russell Westbrook trade. It almost seems inevitable. And then at that point, I think there's two teams that have been linked to Westbrook, one being the Pacers. And if I'm the Indiana Pacers, I don't know why you would trade. Oh my God, this is an old man brain fart on the shooting guard who was with the Kings that the Pacers acquired. You know what I'm talking about? No. The shooting guard. Buddy Hield. Thank you. I've heard rumors that this could be like a swap where the Lakers get back Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. If you're the Pacers, I don't know why you do that trade. That doesn't make any sense.
That would be a complete win for the Lakers.
Totally, absolutely. For some reason, I've heard that out there. I don't know why, if you're the Pacers again, you do that. And then there's the Nets, right? Where there is the trade we've heard about, Kyrie for Russell Westbrook. Just two head cases swapping places with each other. No offense to either of them, but at least with Kyrie, I firmly believe that. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we move on just all this madness? Because the Warriors are probably laughing right now as they're sitting comfortably on the throne of the World Championship.
Hey, everything is everything's a little more sweeter when you're on top, right?
Damn right. And then some sad news was Chet Holmgren, the number 2 pick in the draft. He's out for the year. He suffered what I believe is a Lisfranc injury, which normally football players suffer. It's basically like a fracture in the arch bone of your foot. And for the Thunder, that's just a huge, to me, it's just a huge bummer when a pick that high. Now, look, the Warriors get it. I mean, James Wiseman, it wasn't his first year, but it was I guess it was his first year, about 2/3 of the way through when he got hurt, and then he missed all of his second year. It's just a bummer. Did you like Chet Holmgren? Like, were you high on him? Like, I was not. To me, I'm of the firm belief. I have a very hard rule that if you have a high lottery pick, you just don't draft the player from Gonzaga. That is my rule. If I'm a GM, I do not do that. But a lot of people love Chet Holmgren. Like, what were your thoughts on him, man? Were you high on him, or did you see him like the big stick man that I did?
Well, I mean, I never picked Gonzaga, and no offense to my Gonzaga friends out there, I'll never pick Gonzaga to win a national championship. However, I do like Chet as a prospect. Yeah, he's like super skinny, but I mean, so was Kevin Durant when he came into the league. And at the end of the day, a guy of that size, that have that kind of skill set, I mean, it's very intriguing if you ask me. And, you know, you put some muscle, you know, on that frame, and, you know, who knows what he can become? Something dangerous, probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, right? So like, I'm not incredibly high. I'm not super high on Chet Holmgren, but I see the appeal, right? I see the.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that argument too, which is that, you know, well, KD was skinny and the same height, but I feel like that's an insult to KD. Like, Chet Holmgren to me was not at KD's level. When KD came out of college, everyone knew that was a special talent coming out who could be the type of player he is now. Chet Holmgren was a big. I mean, I don't see the same skill set. I don't see the ball handling, the outside shooting.
Yeah, I'm not comparing them, you know, skill set to skill set. I'm just like,
right.
I'm just like kind of saying that, you know, times guys come into the league a little wiry, they're young kids, and they have a way of filling out down the road.
Yeah.
You know, more times than not. So,
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of ironic that technically LeBron is the person who got Chet hurt. But listen, like, I don't feel bad for the Thunder. This is all part of Sam Presti's plan. Now their tank is back in full motion, and you get Victor Wembanyama out there with Chet and that other tall cat they have that can handle. What's his name? The other like 6'10",
Well,
dude.
they got the Aussie kid drafted.
Who can like pass it. Like, I mean, the Thunder are about to be the best team in the NBA in about 4 years or so.
Yeah, maybe. I have no sympathy for the Thunder until the Seattle Supersonics are back in the NBA. Until that happens, every bad thing that comes to that team, I could care less because they I don't know if you're old enough to remember all that, CJ, but they stole a franchise from the great city of Seattle. I've never forgiven them. And that was so until Seattle gets their franchise back, which should hopefully be soon. Through the expansion, I could care less. You're at the San Francisco Chronicle's offices. Like, why is it so blank on the walls there, man? That's a news organization, and there's just nothing. Is that corporate world for you?
Well, it's just one of the conference rooms. I mean,
gotcha. Okay, all right.
There's like a TV over here.
Gotcha. It's okay. Conference rooms, they're the exception. All right, man. Anything else you want to promote, dude? Again, like people follow CJ Holmes on Twitter at CJ Holmes 22. He is the beat reporter, man. These are the individuals who are traveling with the team, who are immense in with the team. You are an insider, sir, and I can't congratulate you enough again. I know it's been a year now that you've been on the beat. You came from from the Athletics NBA team. Obviously a very different role from that to what you're doing now. I think what you're doing now is so much more rewarding. The work level must be astronomically higher, but I feel like it's worth it, man. How was your first year? You finished your first year as a beat reporter. Your thoughts on your experience?
Well, I don't even say a year. I mean, I only covered the final 22.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
So, I'm going to the first full year this year, but
you're right.
To be able to, walk onto the beat and get the cover a championship team. The team that only went to the finals won the finals. That's pretty cool. It's kind of like a storybook situation, right? So I'm just trying to carry that momentum over to this year. Continue to do my job at the highest level I can. Keep getting to know people in and around the organization, and hopefully the more plugged in I get, the better content I can provide to you guys. At the end of the day, I work for the people. I work for the people, man. So
you're a man of the people, sir. Were you in the locker room following the championship?
Nah. I was hanging out in the media room, securing my goggles.
Oh man, I can't believe you were there, dude. That's huge. Congratulations on all your success, CJ. Let's make this a regular thing. I don't want to wait 3 months to have you back, dude. I know you're a busy person, but let's make some room in the schedule and have you on as much as possible, dude. The people, speaking of serving the people love Locked On Warriors. They love the San Francisco Chronicle. Yeah, would love to have you on anytime, man. So let's make it a regular thing if that's a possibility. Thanks for coming on, brother. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And that's CJ Holmes. You can follow him on Twitter at CJ Holmes 22. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dogsurf Roadshow, and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. And remember, folks, retweet. Don't like. Retweet CJ Holmes tweet. Those are at CJ Holmes 22. And that goes for me too, man. I don't want those likes. What's likes, dude? I want retweets, man. All righty. Thank you. Later.